parties by reading their own compositions. At the entertainments of the fashionable there were frequently dancing girls and singing girls to amuse the guests by their performances, which were of a very loose kind. Dancers from Gades were especially in request. Juvenal tells his friend Persius, whom he invites to a modest meal, that he will not see girls singing the lascivious songs of Gades to the sound of castanets, but will hear a recitation of Virgil and Homer. It was a frequent practice at the end of entertainments to give presents to the guests to carry home with them. These were called apophareta. The style of the slaves who waited was considered important by fashionable people. Africans and handsome Greeks from Asia Minor seem to have been the favorites. They were either dressed in showy silk or went without clothing of any kind. It was the custom for the guests to address the slaves in Greek. In third-rate society manners at meals were often coarse and violent. Horace says that to fight with cups is a custom which should be left to the Thracians, but it seems to have been common in the civilized world. The vulgar freedman Trimalchio in the satire of Petronius throws a cup at the face of his wife Fortunata, who has just called him a dog. Juvenal hints at quarrels and bloody faces as a feature of entertainments given to freedmen by their patrons. Lucian in his Lapithae gives an account of philosophers fighting at a wedding feast. Diphilus fights with the slaves for a fowl. Zenothemis, seeing that a larger fowl has been set before Hermann than that which he has got himself, snatches it. They throw the birds at one another and tear one another's beards. Zenothemis flings a cup at his antagonist, and, missing him, hits the bridegroom. Then the women throw themselves between the opponents, and the cynic Alcidamas uses his club with great effect. A general fray ensues, and cups are freely hurled. Allowing for exaggeration, this description shows that scenes of the kind sometimes occurred. The public banquets, convivia publica, given by the emperors to their friends, must be briefly mentioned. An invitation to these was considered a great honor by senators of the highest rank. Statius was so elated at being invited to dine with Domitian that he wrote a special poem on the occasion. The wives of senators were sometimes present, as, for instance, at a banquet given by Otho. Claudius used to give large dinners constantly to about 600 guests. A story is told that on one occasion a guest was suspected of having carried off a gold drinking cup, and that on the next day an earthen cup was set before him. The fare provided by Augustus was very simple; that of Tiberius was said to have been hardly decent. Under the 3 subsequent emperors there was a reign of luxury. Vespasian's dinners were costly without being extravagant. Gold plate was a privilege reserved for the emperor since 16 A.D. All the guests appeared in the toga, and all, irrespective of rank, enjoyed the same fare. The treatment of the guests by the various emperors at their state banquets was very different. Augustus, in his role of a true princeps, was friendly. Trajan also showed himself very sociable, and the Antonines doubtless knew how to make their guests feel at home. Domitian was condescending, according to his admirer Statius, haughty according to the adverse testimony of Pliny, who states that he used to dine by himself before midday and sit at the public banquet as a mere spectator. A curious story is told of a grim practical joke which he played upon a select number of distinguished guests. He decorated a room in funereal black. The walls and ceiling and the floor were all black, and stone seats, also black, were arranged in order. The guests were ushered in at night, without their attendants, and each man saw a pillar like a gravestone at the head of his seat, and his own name graven on it, and a sepulchral lamp hanging above it. A band of black and naked boys then entered, danced round